I think the EFM 55-200 lens is the most underrated lens on the EFM mount. And I think when I look at all the different lenses that you can get for this camera system, this is one lens that kind of stands alone and it can do things that no other lens in the lineup can do. And this makes it an excellent sports and wildlife lens. It makes it an excellent telephoto landscape lens. And it can also be a very, very good portrait lens. Now, there's a few other options you've got when you are looking to sort of get some sort of telephoto reach on your EFM mount camera. And the first one is adapting a 55-250 EFS lens. Now, there's a couple problems I have with that, and I have had two EFM 55-200 lenses, and in the past I've had two EFS 55-250 lenses. And the first thing I found out is when comparing the sharpness and detail between these different lenses, every time the EFM lens was better. Now, you don't have that same reach. You don't go all the way to 250 like you do with the EFS lens. But I found that the detail and the sharpness from the EFS lens, for me, was so much less that that sort of extra 50 millimeters of reach was kind of irrelevant. So I just found myself using the sharper lens, even though I didn't have the same amount of reach. The other thing you're going to find when comparing that lens is huge. Once you put an adapter on, I mean, that thing is probably twice the length of the EFM 55-200 lens. So comparing these two lenses, I think really there's no question if you're debating between these two lenses, definitely go for the EFM mount lens. The EFS mount lens really just doesn't compare in a number of levels, including build quality. This is an excellent little lens, and it has really nice build quality for such a small, inexpensive lens. Now, the other option is the EFM 18-150 lens. This is a great do-it-all lens, and actually it's incredibly sharp for sort of the range it has. Now, if you don't need that extra 50 millimeters to go to the 200 on the sort of the EFM 55-200, then I think that the 18-150 is actually quite a good sort of buy one lens and don't change the lens type setup. But if you've got the 15-45 kit lens or the 11-292 lens or the 18-55 lens, another great lens, this is a great lens to pair it with. And you're in general going to get better optical performance out of those two lens combinations than you are the 18-150 on its own, and you're going to get a little bit more range. So because of that, if you are sort of comfortable carrying the two lenses and sort of swapping them back and forth when you need to, then I would definitely go for the EFM 55-200. Now, one of the biggest knocks against this lens over the years has been that it is a little bit expensive. Now, I don't know where that came from, and I kind of did feel like that probably 5-6 years ago when I first looked at this lens. But now looking recently, and I will link them in the description down below, I found some pretty good prices, and I don't know if the price just hasn't changed in 5 or 6 years, which has made the lens seem cheaper compared to other lenses on the market, or if the prices actually come down. But the prices I'm seeing are extremely reasonable for what this lens does for you and sort of the quality of images that you're going to get out of it. So I don't think price is really sort of a drawback now. And if you buy any good EFM mount lens, you're going to be sort of paying around this price point. And it's a lot cheaper than stuff like, say, the 32mm f1.4. So it's not an expensive lens at all. If you do get this lens, there's a couple accessories that I recommend. One is a lens hood. You're talking about $10 or something like that. That actually helps protect the front element of the lens. The other thing that it does is it increases contrast. So when there's light coming from the side, it doesn't hit the front element of the lens and sort of cause flaring. The other one that I would recommend is a lens filter, and I've done a lot of research, and there's a lens filter that I recommend for this. It doesn't affect the optical performance. Everything looks the same as if there was no filter on, and it does protect the front of the lens, because this is one of those lenses, if you scratch that front element and you call Canon and find out the cost of sort of repairing the lens, you're going to find that the cost of repairing the lens is so much that you're just going to have to throw out the lens and buy a new lens. So always use a lens filter, and I always use a lens hood on this lens. So I will link those in the description down below. Looking at the build quality on this lens, for its small size and lightweight, it is an incredibly well-built lens. It has a super smooth zoom function. The actual finish on the plastic is similar to sort of the new RF lenses that they're putting out. It's got sort of this matte sort of polycarbonate finish, and then you've got some really nice textured zoom rings and a nice textured focus ring. So it does have a very, very sort of premium build quality for how small it is and how smooth the zoom is. Now, the one place that does kind of let this lens down is that the lens mount is a plastic lens mount, which I don't love. And I think this is just Canon. Anytime that you can buy a lens in their sort of entry-level cameras and they are coming in a kit, they seem to put a plastic lens mount on them. I think that's just to encourage you to, I don't know, buy something that's more expensive. The reality of it is, it would be nice if it was metal. It doesn't affect the image quality, and you're unlikely to break the mount. So I think it's fine, but that is the one thing that I would sort of just mention. I just wish that was a metal mount. Now, the autofocus on this is absolutely dead silent, so you can use it for video, even when you're using the internal mics on the camera. It also is extremely smooth, so it's sort of great for video. You get a very cinematic sort of focus pull. It doesn't sort of jump around and hunt or anything like that. And the image stabilization has just blown me away. Whether you're using it for video or photo, even zoomed all the way into 200 millimeters, it is just rock steady. I mean, you can use it with objects way off in the distance, zoomed into 200 millimeters. And if you are even reasonably steady, you almost get tripod-like performance out of it. The other thing about it is when you pan and move, you don't get jumpiness. It's pretty smooth at sort of following your movements and creating sort of a really smooth image stabilization experience, where some lenses you get them to sort of jump around a bit. So this is a perfect lens with its IS for both photo and video. Looking at image quality, this is where this lens really shines. I am surprised at the level of detail that this little lens resolves, including when I'm sort of shooting animals and you can see sort of little hairs and details and eyelashes and things like this. You are getting an immense amount of detail out of a lens that is so tiny. Super, super impressive. The other thing is you actually can get some nice blurry out of focus backgrounds, particularly if you zoomed in all the way to 200 millimeters and you get that subject kind of filling most of the frame, you will be able to get out of focus backgrounds. The one place that this lens will struggle is in low light conditions, because it doesn't have an aperture that opens really wide to let a lot of light in. So you really want to be using this in sort of brighter conditions. So this does make it very good for sort of outdoor wildlife sort of during the day, sports during the day, even portrait photography outside. The place that you might struggle with this a bit and end up with some sort of noise and grain in your footage because your camera has to crank up its ISO to be able to see that image properly is if you're doing sort of indoor sports, like maybe indoor swim meet or sort of a indoor volleyball or something like that. Indoor sports where you don't have a lot of light, that might be the one place that this lens should be good, but it's going to otherwise struggle because it just doesn't open up and let enough light in for those specific conditions only. And the number one reason really to buy this lens is because it gives you reach that other lenses in the lineup don't give you. So if you're in a situation where something is way off in the horizon, maybe it's a giraffe or an elephant or your kid playing outdoor soccer, and you want to get a good shot of that, you need that reach. You need that telephoto getting out to sort of 200 to get that image to fill the frame so it looks like something, so it's not some tiny little dot on the horizon. And there's no other native EFM mount lens that will do that. So that's why this lens is so incredibly important. And fortunately, it's a great lens. Not only is it the only lens that does that, it is a great lens. They've given us a very good quality lens with excellent image quality. So if you need that telephoto reach, I would look no further than this lens, and I would not bother adapting one of those 55 to 250 lenses because you're just not going to get the same quality overall, and you're getting a much bigger sort of bulky lens that doesn't really sit well with the EFM bodies. On completely the other end of the spectrum, I've just thrown a video on screen now. This is a lens that is great for wide-angle night sky photography, wide-angle landscape, stars, astro, and if you don't have this lens for the camera, I think you're going to find this video very interesting.